Welcome to the show, everyone. Glad to have you back. For those who are just visiting, my name is Sean. I'm creative director here at iHealCollective, and I'm ecstatic and excited today because I have the enigmatic Paul Roy in the studio. You may have heard of him before. He was a workshop practitioner at the Greater Reset Conference. He does some blogs for us. You've probably seen him on some of our videos. I know he's floating around in the Browns gas demonstration videos. And we got him in here today to talk about what he does and where he comes from and the origin story of Paul Roy, which I'm into it. So yeah, welcome, Paul, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Right on, man. Right on. So what should we do to get us started? I figured I wouldn't prepare at all for this interview and just do it completely off the cuff.
That's how I like it. We gotta be real. We gotta be raw.
So if I'm not wrong, you're an Ontario boy, right?
I am originally Ontario boy.
Nice to see.
Born in Toronto, raised up north in the city. I'm kind of half and half, City
right
boy,
on, man.
Half country boy.
Yeah, similar for me. I spent the summers up north, like north of Barrie, Bancroft area.
See?
Yeah, great place. So what is it exactly that you do? In terms of you're a practitioner, you're also a consultant on crypto. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, I got a large wheelhouse right now. A lot of irons in the fire, so to speak.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
Well, let's talk about like let's say, okay, if I was going to seek you out for some coaching, what would be the category that I'd be kind of touching up on?
Well, I guess, I don't know what to call myself. Right now, I guess I'm calling myself a lifestyle and environmental coach.
Yes.
And maybe people would get the lifestyle part, but the environmental thing, they hear that and they're like, are you an ecologist? And that's not what we're talking about. So most people are now familiar with terrain theory.
Okay.
Right? And I was talking about...
That's with Louis Pasteur and then the other guy.
Right. Yeah. It's the alternative theory to the, what allopathic medicine has taken on in modern times, right? It's the alternate theory. And I was talking about the environment before the pandemic happened and before terrain theory became popular.
Right.
And essentially, we're dealing with the fundamentals of what makes us human in our environment. We're in health and wellness, especially in alternative health, we've become very niche and very focusing in on, what's this new fad diet? Oh, these new supplements we're taking. And there's been a lot of marketing and stuff like that, which can be good, right? If you're marketing a good thing, right? There's nothing wrong with that. However, I think people are kind of almost being taken advantage of a little bit, just like they are with allopathic medicine and the pharmaceutical industry. And some of the supplement industry is starting to look like the pharmaceutical industry in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
And so my niche, or what I do, is I focus in on the environment. What makes us human? What did humans evolve under? What are the conditions they evolved under? Mm-hmm. Let's deal with those, because that is going to make everything better, whoever you are. Whether you're an athlete, whether you're someone dealing with a chronic disease, whether you just want to, have more energy with your kids or your family or whatever it is, right? If you deal with the fundamentals, everything is going to be better from the baseline, anything that you do. There are supplements that could be good. There are treatments that could be good, but it all depends on your context, right?
Right.
And do you have those things at the base level handled? And therefore, are they going to work, infinitely better for you in that case?
Is this kind of going back to the, you look at some of these, the guys living in the hunter-gatherer societies that are still surviving today, living the old way.
Yeah.
And they're jacked.
Yeah.
They're all ripped. They run like nonstop. I mean, there's other podcasts you hear guys talking about trying to keep up with these hunters, and they just run.
Oh yeah.
They run so fast all the time, everywhere.
Right. And so, there's been a lot of theories about that. Like you look at Western A. Price, are you familiar with him? So he was a dentist at the turn of the century, and after he retired, he traveled around the world to study these cultures that, maybe they didn't have contact yet, or maybe they were just like, one leg in the door, one leg out with like the modern life.
Yeah.
So we could kind of get like, what's going on? What happened to get us to modern human to like from hunter gatherer? Like, what's the difference here? Because he was a dentist, so he was examining the teeth and the jaw, and seeing that they had perfect teeth.
Right.
They had these perfect jaws, right? And the teeth all fit in. His quest was to figure out why. Why is it that, in his theory, a lot of it was to do with like diet. And that's true, right? They introduced the
were they South American?
I think he went around the world. Like he even just studied people in the tundra, like in the Arctic, I believe.
Okay, because
And
I remember an article.
To Africa. He went to.
It was a similar thing, and it was old indigenous from South America, Mayan or Aztec or one of the other ones, but it was very old jawbone from like 65-year-old individual, just caked with I guess what you'd call plaque, but underneath the teeth were absolutely 100% intact, not a single cavity.
Yeah. And all of them are there, right? They all fit in. Like a lot of our, our mouths these days, like we're having a crowding in our teeth, right? And the jaw just doesn't seem to fit all the teeth that come in, and they're pulling wisdom teeth and all this stuff. But these were like,
why is that?
Formed. Well, his theory was there was a few different things going on with diet, and that's part of it as well. But it's not the whole story.
Well, there could be an anthropological can of worms to open there if you look at the beautification of neoteny, which is babyish attributes being desirable. But I might be off on something there.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but the hunter gatherers, I don't know if they were concerned with that all across the board, but again, there's a lot of different factors leading into that. It's not just diet. Diet's part of it.
Right.
Your breath, for instance, the way that you breathe. Modern humans have a tendency to breathe through their mouth a lot of the times when they're stressed out. You all know sleep apnea is there. A lot of people are breathing through their mouth when they're sleeping. And we develop these habits early in childhood, and they carry on, and they actually can disform the face by breathing in through your mouth. And even if you can get breathing through the nose, you can actually change the shape of your face later on in life. That's how powerful it is.
Just by breathing techniques.
So this is a specific one that I like. There's a few. Buteyko breathing, and also like the alternate nostril breathing from the ancient Indian practices is great as well. But breathing through your nose is key because this is actually how mammals, for the most part, are supposed to breathe, with the exception of dogs.
Right.
But if you have a sick horse, if he's breathing through his mouth, any good vet will tell you, your horse needs assistance now.
Some problems going on.
Yeah, right. So if you see any mammal breathing through their mouth, not a good idea. And athletes are,
I don't think they get wintertime allergies.
No. Well, they're not supposed to anyways, right? But yeah, even athletes, if you see them breathing through their mouth, I mean, there's a problem there, in my opinion, right? They're not breathing efficiently to begin with, and you'd have to dial back the level of exercise until they can actually properly breathe through their nose and exert that level of force. So that's one example. The other example is these hunter-gatherers, they're connected to their environment. So let's consider that most of them, they're not wearing footwear all the time, and if they are, it's probably leather, and it's been worn in, and they're actually connected to the earth. The earth is giving them electrons. They have a net negative charge that they're drawing up from the earth. So this is key because the body is electric, right? It actually has semiconductors running through it. So that's a huge thing. They're also their lighting environment. So So if you're a hunter gatherer from closer to the equator, you have a set amount of light year round, like it never changes. We're from Canada,
right?
In the summertime, we're used to going outside at like 9:30, 10 o'clock. It's still like
bright.
super bright.
Yep.
They don't have that, right? It's like the same amount of light all year round, right? And when that sun goes down, all they got is fire. So there's very key things that are happening with the natural lighting world. We're gonna come back and spend a whole show on this for sure. But just to know that they don't have any artificial light. And that's not throwing off their circadian rhythms, the biological clocks. So their biological clocks are intact. And, as we'll see when we get into this topic deeper, light affects everything at every level of the body. It's one of the most important things to understand. And so they're intact with the natural world in terms of light. They're intact with the grounding. And just those two things alone just supercharges their immune system.
So speaking of supercharging, you mentioned electrons, and we're talking atomic level processes now.
Yes.
And so even in our health industry, they're only just kind of starting to use other than like X-rays and this kind of thing. But it seems like most of the nutrition, the pharma, even the well-meaning nutrition, they never touch upon the underlying system of how the body works. Yes, we're a biochemical chemical
yeah.
organism. And there's a massive interconnected system of reactions that happen to make metabolism happen.
Yeah.
But hardly anyone talks about the atomic reactions, which is the basis for the chemical reactions.
Exactly.
This is electron exchange, right? And electrons and electricity is something that really, unless you're Nikola Tesla, not everyone fully quite understands. Not everything is really understood about how it works. Static electricity, where does it come from? The way that electricity can transfer wirelessly in certain circumstances, and using magnet fields, which I think could have something to do with what makes life itself tick.
Oh, you got it.
So
You got it, man. Like, one of my mentors, he always used to talk about light, water, and magnetism. And this is what NASA searches for when they search for extraterrestrial life. You don't have light, you don't have water, you don't have magnetism, you ain't gonna have life. Those are like the three things they're looking for. So you look at Mars, it's a dead planet. It has no, molten core creating a magnetic field, right? It's a dead planet.
So
that magnetism is very important.
there's no tectonic activity or volcanic activity.
Dead. It's absolutely dead. The sun's still there shining on it, but it's dead, right? And so those key things are really what I'm focusing in on. And you brought up some good points there in terms of what health and wellness, even alternative is starting to wake up to this now. But, the allopathic side, they don't talk about, how quantum physics and the atomic stuff on the atomic level is the basis for the chemical stuff that they're talking about. So we can look at a mitochondria. So mitochondria are the power plants in your cell, right? And they're to do with metabolism. So when you eat something, right? The health and wellness is talking about proteins, fats, and carbs, okay, and micronutrients and stuff like that, your minerals and everything else. Okay, that's at the chemical level. But inside a mitochondria, where you're making the energy from what you eat, there's no inputs for carbs and proteins and fats. There's an electron chain transport.
Right.
So all that food has to be stripped down to electrons and protons. And so this becomes an energy story. Really. Right. Health and wellness is really an energy story. That's what everything is. Everything we know this is, whether you're talking the woo-woo world or you're talking quantum physics, which, they don't seem to be much different from each other once you get into brass tactics.
Nobody talks about quantum physics and then marries it with nutrition. I don't think anyone.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the people that I learned from.
I've never. You're the only one, Paul. You're my first.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, obviously, but.
Well, here you go. He's the gateway. He's the gateway to the wild world of quantum nutrition.
Right. So, I just lost my train of thought there. But
sorry about that.
But essentially, that's how we have to think. Everything is energy, right? So when we have a chronic disease, or you have, you're trying to gain optimal performance or move towards optimal performance, we really need to consider that everything is energy, and how can we make more energy? And the body is an intelligent thing, and when you feed it more energy, it's going to intelligently distribute that wherever it needs, right? So the theory that I like to work with is, let's say we have something like cancer or something, another sort of chronic, like something to do with the heart or the brain, right? You're having these symptoms because there's an energy deficiency there. Why? Because your body is rerouting power to keep you alive today, right? Because if it didn't reroute the power, you'd be dead today, right? So in that time that your body is graciously giving you, you can change the things in your environment, or change the thing that is causing said symptoms or said chronic illness, right? It's we have to change our perspective on the body is here to help us, right? If you have the perspective that
it's not like an old barn tractor that keeps breaking down, because that's how I think that's the more popular way of thinking about it. How many 55-year-olds that are like, right, they can't even move without and then they're like, this old body, I'm old,
right.
And it has nothing to do with aging. There's something else going on.
Well, yeah, the aging process, especially here in the West that we're familiar with.
In the West, in modern times, not that guy in France. He's like 92.
Or even in Asia, right? Look how their population ages. They have these systems built in where they're always moving. I mean, even here in Mexico where we are, a lot of the older generation, they're very gritty and they're still moving, and they haven't stopped moving. Whereas back home in the West,
especially at the cumbia parties,
we
love cumbia
parties.
Cumbia.
Yeah, those hips are still rocking, right? So, it's about not stopping, not moving. You know, it's about the culture and the mindset. If you think that you're getting older and you're going to age, then you're going to naturally do those things, and you're going to actually shift towards that kind of mentality where now everything's breaking down. We're not supposed to be like that. We're supposed to be in the right environment and also have the right stimulus to be able to age gracefully.
Right.
You know, we're supposed to actually get stronger as we age, especially as men, right? Now, some of the jobs that men are, you know, generally have, these trades, they're doing these, you know, these movements, specialized movements over and over and over again, and a lot of different areas get overlooked, right? So you definitely get these injuries from doing that. We really want to condition the body to move in all ways, right? And so in order to condition ourselves to handle life in every way, because the human body was designed to move in every way, right? And to be stimulated in every way, whether that's temperature, hot, cold. The spine is supposed to move every way. The feet are supposed to feel the rocks beneath you to stimulate the nerves that go to your brain. There's just so many things. Like, we're supposed to be in a forest. I think we were talking about this the other day. You might have mentioned it. You step into the forest and there's just so much information coming at you, whether it's the smells, all the different things that are moving, you know, all the different leaves.
But it's not the kind of information that overwhelms you or upsets you, though. It's like the overwhelming of information that is like, calm down.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost therapeutic.
Yeah.
Overload.
Those frequencies that you're getting, whether it's from color, whether it's from, you know, the sense that, you know, that are happening at the quantum. Like, when you actually smell something, there's a key lock thing that's happening on the quantum level that actually. You know, this is the theory that's out there right now in quantum physics that allows smell to happen, right? There's just so many complex things. Now, science likes to break this down, but it's a natural thing. If we're in our natural environment, it's not something we have to explain. It's just what is.
Yeah.
It's because modern humans have taken themselves out of this stimulus that is healing to us. This is the natural state. This is where we have the disconnect. We're out of balance because our environments are not what they used to be. So obviously, you know, optimally, you know, we could go back and live more of an outdoor lifestyle and live in the forest or wherever is your natural environment may be. But we live in the modern world. We have jobs. We have to still have to indicate. So I guess my job is how can we have the best balance, given that we have to operate in the modern world, right? There's sometimes where there's kind of non-negotiable things where you kind of got to get out of the environment that you're in, because you're probably not going to get better until you change that. But, you know, there's things we can do to shift things around to at least, you know, bring things a little bit more into balance. If we understand what it is we're missing, we can add that back in. What it is that's making us weak, we can then subtract that.
Beautiful. So if you were to, let's say, now without giving too much away, because we are limited for time.
Sure.
But like, say, okay, for me, I'm a video editor, I'm a technician. So I have to spend a lot of time working on a computer, tick, 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 doing this.
Sure.
What would be like an optimal strategy for someone like myself, say between, you know, when I wake up till when I start? Like, what are some things I could do to, let's say, charge my batteries or prepare the body for the unnatural, repetitive, small motion task, which is computer work? And then how long at a time should computer work really be that's within, you know, a healthy nominal?
Well, I mean, you know, that depends on your job, obviously, how many hours you got to put. Sometimes you can't really.
Well, I'm a freelancer, so okay. I do make my own hours.
Right. So that's
digital
good.
Nomads. Listen up, here we go.
That's good, right? Okay. If you can make your own hours, then you can make a lot of different adjustments. I mean, I'm big on light, right? So, you know, if you're on a computer before sunrise or after sunset, I want you to be using blue blocking glasses for sure. You know, when you wake up in the morning, I don't want the first thing you to see is a screen.
Okay.
I want you to see natural light. You know,
so natural light is the first kind of light you should give your eyeballs.
And throughout the day, like if you can, have the windows open in your studio to have the natural light coming in and bouncing around in the room. You know, don't rely on, you know, if you're looking for an apartment or a workspace, do not get into a space where there's no windows and you got fluorescent lighting everywhere. Like, just that's cross that off the list.
So I had a brief period where I had my computer screen. It was right in front of a very large window, and it was very bright. Like, it was, you know, it was a second floor, so I had a bit of a view. I think that was the nicest setup I ever had, and it felt nice aesthetically. Could there have been some therapeutic benefits, perhaps?
If you open the windows.
Ah, okay.
You know, so we can't get deep into this today, but I'll just give you an example of truck drivers, for instance. You can go on the internet and you can look these photos up where they have this increased aging on one side of their face. I swear, go look
Now,
it up.
the sun side or which side?
It's usually the left side, right? And it's coming through the window because the
window.
sun's always on that side, on the left side of them coming
Right.
in. And the windows are closed. And actually, the glass that we have is filtering in a lot of the beneficial frequencies of light, especially UVA, UVB, and part of the infrared spectrum. That's actually the healing part that protects you from the higher radiation frequencies. And so because those aren't there, you get this photo aging, this crazy amount of photo aging.
Wow.
So the key is you've got to let those light frequencies at least come in and bounce around and hit your skin and your eye. So the big window is great, and that's better than throwing on some LED lights or fluorescent lights or whatever.
Right.
But at the same time, you want the natural, the full spectrum to come in. So if you can open that window, as long as there's a screen that's allowing the frequencies to come in naturally.
Right. So you are very much an advocate about controlling the type of light that you're exposed to and how this will have a positive
It's huge.
effect on.
It's so
on-
huge.
So I did set up the studio today in tungsten. I thought I'd do it, which is the old school yellow light.
see,
It's not blue LED,
Yeah.
it's tungsten LED. So I thought that would be a slight improvement.
Yeah, it's an artificial tungsten.
Yeah.
Like tungsten is a good example. Like that's what's in the old school Edison bulbs that
Yeah.
we used to use that haven't been outlawed, right? That
Right.
filament.
The
that's in
filament
there.
is the element tungsten. Right?
It is,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so this is actually producing a good amount of infrared light to counterbalance the unnatural blue that's also in the light. So those are optimal lights to use.
So the only kind of non-natural light that we've been exposed to as a species for long enough for it not to be weird or alien to our body is probably firelight.
Yes.
And tungsten is emitting essentially the same frequencies as firelight is because it's something oxidized. Well, it's an extremely slow oxidization reaction causing photon. I might be wrong on that. You can check the science on it. But as far as I know,
closer.
it's closer
It's
to,
closer.
or candlelight.
Yeah, candlelight would be obviously, same as fire, right? But
Right.
it's close. It's close to those. They're making OLEDs now, which are okay, but they're still not. You still don't have that. If you can't feel the heat coming off the bulb, you're missing that infrared because the
infrared.
Right? Yeah, it's the infrared part of the spectrum that is really healing and balancing. In fact, the sun at all times throughout the day always has these infrared spectrum present, and that's what actually protects you from the higher radiation that's there.
So if you take that out, then the whatever protection mechanisms you have, your melanin or your tan or whatever's going on in your skin, no longer functions.
Well, you're sending signals to the body,
Okay.
right? So it's like you don't have that protection yoked in, but you're also sending signals that you nailed it right on the head. It's an alien light source, right? These lights that we have, these LEDs, they have a higher color temperature than the sun. They have higher blue content. They're literally a light that has never existed on this planet. Maybe somewhere in the universe it exists, but not naturally. We did not evolve under that. And
Some strange quasar in the Crab Nebula.
that's right. It could be, right? It could be, but it's not here, right? And we'll get into this deeper in the other episode. But when astronauts go up into space, they have studied them, and it is the worst thing you can do for your health because you're outside of the filter that created life on this planet. You're outside of the magnetic field. You're outside of the filter that filters all the light coming through from the sun and the proper spectrums. And there's all kinds of other stuff going on. But we are supposed to be underneath a specific recipe for life to exist in the way that it does right now. And our modern world essentially has disconnected us from that in very ways that we take for granted. Like if you really look at what I'm saying, it's like obvious stuff. Right, it's like stuff that we all take for granted, but it is the most important thing, and it's a cliche. It's cliche, but it's like,
I mean, it's funny how this stuff is essentially it's pretty obvious and simple stuff that anyone can really integrate into their lives with proper guidance and coaching. However, like why is this not something we're taught as kids? Why it's not on television? You don't read anything about it on mainstream science magazines. Some mainstream science magazines, which by the way I was a subscriber for quite a while. It's very technical. It's almost is it deliberately overcomplicating this stuff? Is it is there something going on here, or maybe they don't want us to know this stuff? Because it seems so simple and obvious. However, you have these geniuses that are, you know, for instance, I think every single person that discovered the double helix all died from cancer from all the x-rays they were playing with. So, you know, just because you're, or they are an expert scientist on any level doesn't necessarily mean that they understand everything. No one understands.
They don't. It's quite the opposite.
Everything. And you have to remember that sorry to interrupt you. You have to remember that every concept, scientifically, anthropologically, epistemic, whatever, and all of them it was just some guys like us sitting in chairs discussing things. Nothing was divinely bestowed on us. It was just people trying to figure out their reality. So, we want to keep our discretion and keep our open minds for what we think we understand, what we really, really do understand, and what could have some more answers out there, because we don't know everything. And also, the so-called scientific authorities aren't necessarily authorities at all. They're just people like you and me. And just because they've put fancy titles under their name and read so many books to get a fancy piece of paper from a building that was paid for by company A or B, you know, they're still just human beings.
Absolutely.
And nothing to take away from doing your studies and getting your degrees and all of that. I am a lifelong student personally, and I pride myself on that. I won't be getting any fancy pieces of paper from fancy buildings, because I don't want to pay tuition, and we have all knowledge at our fingertips. Because we have people like Paul, you know, out there giving us this knowledge, and if we seek them out, we
live in the age of information.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So,
absolutely.
Those institutions are becoming irrelevant for a lot of people, just because it's just you don't need to pay the tuition to go to that.
You don't need to. I mean, you can find the information. There's tons of content creators just like us out there that are giving this information out, and they want to genuinely help and educate.
Good critical thinking and a good intuition.
Yes,
to navigate
absolutely.
That,
Sorry, go ahead.
In the age of information, it's like we have so much out there that now you have to actually filter through it and curate it, which is good and bad, right? Because misinformation can get in there quite easily. Right? Yeah,
like you said, the supplement companies are starting to now.
Yeah, they look like the pharmaceutical industry in a lot of ways. And now everything has context, I believe, for sure. But the other point that you brought up is that science, it's very specialized, and this is the problem. And so they're not, when you talk to someone that deals in physics, and then you talk to someone who deals with biology, they're not necessarily, they're in their own worlds a lot of the time. We're starting to see these scientists now that are polymaths, or whatever you would call them. They're crossing over and talking with each other, but that's the exception to the rule. And it's great. We need people to actually focus in and do that, but at some point they need to talk to each other.
They have to,
right? So they have their own dogmas, and this is a lot of the stuff that to really understand nature, it has to be all put together. Mm-hmm. And the hubris also as well has to be put down.
Well, I believe that's nefarious influence by design on these institutions. It's the frat boy thing. You have the doctor frat, and then you have the kinesiologist frat, and then you have the chiropractor frat. Fraternity is what I'm saying. And they're clubs, and they don't intermix. They don't like each other, and they're kind of taught to not like each other. They're taught not to mix. They're taught that one of is better than the other one. And I grew up in
similar to the
this
military
environment.
Almost. The Navy doesn't like the Air Force.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're some kind of overlord figure, and you want to maintain a control over the ebb and flow of information, I mean, what better system to implement?
Yeah.
Now,
compartmentalization.
Yes, and what we're doing here is we're trying to break down those walls. I want to have every kind of practitioner should be able to talk with every other kind of practitioner with a level of mutual respect. And that's something I will encourage. You can't demand that, but I will encourage that. I don't think archaeologists are better than anthropologists, and like they're different.
Yeah, everybody's got their piece of the puzzle.
Yes.
Now we need, the time is for the puzzle connector people to come in, right? All
yes.
the scientists, they've put out a nice puzzle for us, and now we need the people to come in and put it all together.
Yeah.
Right? So we can have a full picture.
Yeah.
And it will lead us back to nature.
Yeah.
There's nothing that has been created within technology that did not already exist in nature. Even semiconductors.
Right.
We have semiconductors inside our body. If you don't believe me, you can look into Robert O. Becker's work. He found that the collagen matrix is a p-type semiconductor. And so what is that? Is that nature looks like technology? No, it's the other way around. We have unconsciously created these things from nature, right? Sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. We can't create anything outside that. The trouble that we've got ourselves into is this is not a conscious thing. So the technology that we create is not in line with nature, and we have these side effects that have come out now. Right? And that could be intentional, could be unintentional.
We don't know.
We don't know. I'm sure there is nefarious people that are doing it intentionally, but I think for the most part it's unintentional just because of the consciousness that we've had, in the past. And if we can shift that consciousness, we can have technology that's actually safe.
Yeah.
Right from the get-go.
I mean, what's to stop someone from designing a Wi-Fi router that uses solfeggio frequencies on the bands?
Right. Yeah, and there is technologies that use carrier waves for like frequencies that would be more in line with our biology. Even I believe you're an electrician by trade, see? So I mean, you understand the AC.
In another life, but
in another life, right? So we can talk shop a little bit about that.
Yeah.
So the body, for instance, runs on a DC electric current, and most of everything that we use is alternating current.
That's true.
Which is not good for our biology. It was not built to deal with this alternating current going back and forth, right? So if you may or may not know out there that Edison and Tesla kind of had a little beef back in the day, let's say, right? One was for DC, one was for AC. If we would have adopted, and we still could theoretically adopt a more DC grid, that would be huge for our biology, right? So it's just, and I don't think there's necessarily a nefarious thing against us with that particularly. It's just that we don't know because we have these specializations in science that have kind of blinded people from understanding the links between physics and biology. And
even what Tesla was developing has been perverted in the sense is in that AC was developed to facilitate wireless electricity transfer.
Right. And
the fact that they're using wires is strange because you can actually transfer wire electricity, a voltage, amperage, a load. You can do it wirelessly, and this happens, by the way, around power. Well, no, around power cables. This is going on. You can hold another piece of wire near some of those 22,700 kilovolt lines, right? And you can measure a voltage on it just by holding it there. And if you stand in a certain place under them, especially the big ones, like you'll find these in the States, the junction places where there's like the big ones, you can take a fluorescent tube from an office, and you can get enough current to actually illuminate that sucker right underneath those wires. Now, do you think that came into the thought process of the people that were developing that technology, that this could be possibly having
that's a different
biological effect?
Yes, I'll have to say yes on that particular one because it's involved. The U.S. military was involved with that particular one, and there was a huge cover up around that. When they started rolling out all of the big main transmission lines throughout the United States, they had all these cancer clusters that were popping up in the neighborhoods around there. There was huge court cases back in the 70s and 80s that were pretty much railroaded out.
Man.
Yeah, so in that particular case, they know about it. They've known about it for a long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I don't know how I keep stumbling upon these conspiracies. It's just electricity, man. Like, what's going on there?
Well, electricity is everything, right?
Yeah.
Well,
we're using it right now.
We're electric beings, right? Everything on Earth is the life of Earth depends on the electromagnetic spectrum from the sun, from the magnetic field, again, right? Even water has electromagnetic properties. That may be what water is. It's a store of not only energy at times, but also information.
Yes. And I know from my own messing around with singing bowls, if you put water into one of them, the things where you go around them, you go doo, once you get them going.
Tibetan singing bowls.
Correct. If you put a little bit of water in one of those, and you can actually get the water to start percolating and bubbling and going. It takes a minute though. It takes a minute. Now, the interesting thing that I discovered, which really kind of changed my thought process on what water actually is, was it takes about 20 seconds or so before it starts percolating. But once you get that percolation, and you leave the bowl now. You stop doing the thing, ooh, stops. Put it down on the table, walk away, come back, bring the bowl up. 15 minutes later, do the thing again. The water percolates instantly. Mm-hmm. The water remembered that vibration and is primed in some capacity. And that's something, an experiment that anyone can replicate. You can do it with a wine glass, even maybe, I don't know. The Tibetan bowls, they vibrate at a high enough to they really get going. You really get the water going. Yeah. That's something you can recreate on your own. Try it out. Try it at home. And you'll see that water remembers. Yeah. It's remembering. Yeah. And what is the mechanism behind that? Is there like...
Water is a huge topic that, science has been baffled by water. Like if you talk to just a normal scientist, they can tell you very little about it. Just because it's very anomalous.
It's somewhat positive. It's somewhat negative, in terms of charge. It
does weird things. Like they couldn't figure out for the longest time why ice floats in water. And thank God for the fish.
Right.
It does, right? But for some weird reason, like ice shouldn't really float on the water, but it does. Yeah. Just like weird things like that, or,
the self-organizing, molecular lattice, I believe is.
Well, I mean, water is different outside the body than it is inside the body. It's a completely different thing. A lot of water has been studied outside the body. And what kind of water is it? Is it tap water? Is it water found? The water found in nature is much different. Why is that? So the modern day guy that's really doing good work with water, that's still with us, is Dr. Jared Pollack at the University of Washington, and he's studying what he calls easy water. And so when you actually put energy into the water via infrared light, and that could be a light from like a heat lamp, or it could be from the sun, or it could be, we have infrared light emanating everywhere off the wall, especially here. The concrete, everything's concrete here, so it's absorbing all that infrared light. So we have infrared light in our environment everywhere.
Is infrared light the same thing as heat?
Yes, so it's associated with heat, and that's something that he goes into his book to kind of parse what is kind of heat. And yeah, to some degree, it is the infrared light. Anything that has a certain spectrum of it. There's infrared that doesn't have heat, and a good example of this is storm clouds. So if you've noticed, there might be like a hazy sort of cloud and you can still feel the heat from the sun. But as soon as that dark storm cloud rolls over, the heat disappears.
Yeah, it absorbs.
So if you could actually measure the light spectrum that's available, then there's still infrared available, but it's just the part that has the noticeable heat on your skin is now being absorbed by the water molecules in the cloud.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that energy, can manifest in some pretty epic storms. And is that's playing a role?
Yeah, it's all playing a role. Like the clouds are interacting positive and negative with the ground and electrically. So there's all kinds of things going on there. I believe they found now that the lightning bolts are actually starting at the ground and not at the cloud.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure to parse that out to you. But we kind of got off the topic there. I was talking about Gerald Pollack and his work.
The water.
So he's found that shining infrared light on water creates a battery. And so this is information that it's taking in. So there's actually a charge separation going on, just like a battery, of a positive and negative terminal. And he's using that in all kinds of weird and crazy ways. It actually also affects the surface tension of water. So he has this water, and he has two beakers sitting there, and he's actually created a bridge of water by shining infrared light on the water between these two beakers that are made of Nafion. So there's actually a bridge of water. So the surface tension is increased by shining the infrared light on there. He's also had straws, Nafion straws in the beaker, shines the light, the water starts crawling up inside of the straw. And so this explains a lot of things in nature, like how do trees get sap from the bottom or liquids down from the bottom? How do they defy gravity?
That's right.
How do all the liquids in the human body work, for instance?
Well, if we're electrical beings, mineralized water with impurities in it. It's literally how you test for impurities is you drop an electrode into water, you drop positive and a negative, and then it measures your electrical resistance. And depending on how much, you'll get a reading in voltage, and then you can convert that into parts per million of impurities.
Right.
So the quality of the water that you put into your body may not always be the same, right? No. Even in nature, even in perfect world, hunter-gatherer land.
Yeah, there's different waters.
There's
absolutely.
And if we're electrical, running DC, direct current, That would mean that the water that we imbue and bring into our system, I imagine, well, I know this because I've seen some of your talks, that the water molecularly actually needs to be prepared in the way that it can facilitate the reactions that are necessary for metabolism and life itself.
Yeah, it's way more beneficial to have the proper water going in. However, there is also another component here, is that the body makes its own water. And that's what even a lot of science still doesn't understand. The mitochondria actually makes its own water. It actually makes the cytosol in the cell under the right conditions. So
Cytosol is the liquid
inside the cell,
inside of a cell that the organelles are floating in. For those that
and that's a
don't know.
completely different water. That's actually easy water. So the water that I just talked about, where you shine the infrared light on it and it gets viscous, it's very viscous, so it can form like a bridge, or it has the battery inside it. That is actually the water that is supposed to exist inside your cells, right?
Okay.
And that's how life really works. Like, if that's not there, life does not exist. It's very important. And so you can drink water that will allow your body to make that water more efficiently, or you can drink actual easy water itself. For instance, why juicing works so well is because if you cold press the juice, meaning like not like throw the juice the vegetables or whatever, the greens, in a blender that like heats it up. If you cold press it, you're actually going to get easy water out of that plant material and drink that. And that's a huge thing where people don't even understand about why juicing is so good. It's not. I think that might be more important
than the fruit itself.
Yeah, there's that easy water that you're taking in that may have the most benefit, because people are just starved of this stuff.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, like, what are the implications of using this? Can I call it technology? What would you like a
Like saying what the body is doing?
The water philosophy, the better water philosophy. I'm trying to think of how to categorize
protocol?
These teachings. Yeah.
Could be a protocol,
I wonder like what this could do for professional sports, or
I mean, it's huge. All of this stuff
athletics.
is huge. You get any one of these things right, whether it's water, whether it's breathing, whether it's light, sleep, like all the basic things. If you just get those rocking and maybe even above optimal, I mean, it's going to affect everything, right? I mean, athletes, if you have a high functioning athlete already, that's a professional athlete, they're always looking to improve by like fractions of a percent. That's how high level they are.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're talking about something like that, I mean, some of these things could be game changers if they're not doing them already, right?
Yeah.
Because they're trying to like just nudge things here and there with different things, right? But if they don't have this huge piece of the puzzle in place, I mean, they could gain massive gains in their and across the board. And in terms of not being injured as well, it's not even just performance. It's about like, can you stay healthy throughout your career, right?
Right.
And let's be real, like professional athletes for most sports, it's not really a healthy thing to do in a lot of cases. They are running their body ragged. So anything that they can do to make them more resilient, I mean, is going to benefit not only their career, but I mean, after their career is done. You know what I mean? Especially
absolutely
like football players.
So they can maintain a level of lifestyle that's normal.
Yeah, because, enjoy their life with their family after retirement.
I've seen, that story, that power lifter, the big dude, that was heartbreaking, man.
Yeah.
He was on those like walker things, like a paraplegic. He still went to the gym though.
Yeah.
He didn't give it up. But, this is the kind of thing where, perhaps you don't have to sacrifice your body completely to have an elite athletic career.
Sure.
If you just you're pushing at 110%. What's physically possible.
Yeah.
In terms of that extra 10% is what's causing injury that's gonna potentially disable you forever. But if you go 110% on your nutrition and your protocols for light, sleep, dark, water.
Yeah, the way
what you're eating, the way you breathe, maybe that could give you that 10% back. And then you could do the 110% and have it only be 100%. And then, I mean, this is an experiment I think we should definitely get on.
Absolutely. We got some athletes are hanging around.
Yeah, we do. We just had a triathlon here actually in Ixtapa, which was pretty epic. I got out there. Yeah, I made a little video for you. You can see that on the feed if you're tuning in.
Yeah.
That's in it. So I would they got out of this like crazy swim, and then they go to the bike. And what I didn't realize is they run an entire 10 kilometers after the 42 kilometer bike ride or something. It's like a 5 kilometers. The point is,
They should not start with the swimming first in the hot environment. They should have it like in the middle or at the end. Just to
yeah,
get cool
like
off a
at
little
the
bit.
end, like why would they do the swimming first? The 10-kilometer run is crazy. I saw one of the guys. He was just getting like ran to the where you switch to the bikes, and he was dogged, man. I could tell, and I was like, he's got to do the whole bike race and then run another 10 kilometers. And he's already dogged from the swimming.
Oh yeah.
Like this is a guy that could use some easy water.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, what if they're handing that out at the, you know, like, this is the thing. Like, why doesn't everyone know about this stuff?
Well, I mean, again, the specializations in science has kind of put up walls because in order to understand this stuff, you need to have a little bit of biology, a little bit of physics, a little bit, you know what I mean? Different specialities coming together. And a lot of scientists, they think, well, that can't be right because the thing that I learned in school says this textbook says this. Whereas, they have these blinders on. Now that's changing a lot. There's a lot. It's not to say there's a lot of great scientists out there that are really putting a lot of the puzzle pieces together in the modern times, and we're just starting to get this now. And now the age of information is here, right? They're not stuck with just what their textbook says. They're able to communicate with people all over the world and get these ideas if they're open-minded to that.
And update them, as new things are discovered.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the power of the internet, baby.
Yeah.
How do you see AI working in health and keeping people healthy or reaching? Do you think there's any tie-in at all? I'm just thinking of this.
Well,
now.
I mean, it's going to affect everything across the board. I'm sure. I don't think there's anything that's not going to be touched by it in some way.
I'm curious on its information parsing ability because it only is giving out what it's been fed.
Right, and so if you try and use it, if you try and feed it questions about obscure information that I talk about, I've done that, and it doesn't know.
It doesn't know.
It's still inside. What would you call it?
A bubble.
A bubble, yeah, right. For whatever reason, I think they've artificially put that bubble on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I could, I haven't done it yet, but if I can start feeding it some of these obscure textbooks that I've been exposed to, right? And the work of some of these scientists like Gilbert Ling and others that most people don't know who they are, but he invented the MRI machine. Right. He's famous for that, but people don't know.
Magnetic resonance imaging, for those that don't know, MRI.
But he's also kind of laid the framework for how the body actually produces energy, like we were talking about the mitochondria, because the standard theory from Peter Mitchell doesn't add up when you do the math. Okay. So my point is, if you can get these obscure kind of textbooks and this knowledge to something like ChatGPT, that's that already does not have it's in that bubble. Then maybe we could it'd be interesting to see.
Well, I think there's possibly a place for AI, and some spaces shouldn't really, or it's just not, because it's only going off information that's fed. But I was just thinking while you were talking there about live blood analysis, and you have, let's say we get Dr. Ross, Dr. Rox Sanderson. He's one of our consultants. He does live blood analysis. So we'll take all 4,500 or so results that he's done, analyses that he's done, and teach the AI what to recognize, because that's what it's really good at.
That's the thing, is you have to feed it the right information, right? So like if you know what I mean? Like right now, let's say you go get some blood lab tests done, right? It's giving you a snapshot of what's happening now, but the benchmark that they're comparing it to is it's the average person out there.
Right.
So the average person out there is not really that healthy. So it's like, if you're feeding ChatGPT, okay, like quantifiable data, what is it measuring to? You also have to program in like what's the proper baseline that should be measuring it for. So it has to be, so you have
to have some intelligence in the actual teaching of the AI for the AI to be intelligent.
Yes. Absolutely. That's what it's not our overlord master yet. It still does not have the creativity. It can be used as a creative tool for creative people to actually feed it things, and it may give you new ideas to go and create this masterpiece, but we still need the human input to actually move things forward. I believe it can build on what we already have, but I guess with a lot of the things that we're interested in, especially the niche things, you still have to program it with the niche information, because if you start talking to it, it knows what the standard model is.
Yeah, it's like the Britannica encyclopedia with able to talk.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is cool. You can do crazy stuff with it, but don't expect it to, understand maybe what we're talking about in some of these.
Well, as the creative director here, I'm keeping an eye on that space for possible developments as they come. So if something pops up in a way that is really, really groundbreaking, and I think there will be, especially because you're talking, what are the things the human brain is like not so good at? It's not good at memorizing millions and millions of things, for instance. What is DNA? It's a code of millions and millions of things. And figuring out how it works is almost impossible for the human brain to comprehend, because you're looking at a 2D representation of a three-dimensional structure that's unfolded, essentially. It's like looking at a triple dodecahedron 126 shape or sided shape being unfolded flat and then folded up again inside of itself and then folded flat again. Because nature doesn't care how complex it is. It really doesn't. It's not there.
It created the complexity.
Right. It just complexity.
It looks complex to us.
Yeah.
To nature, or if you're inside nature, it's no longer complex anymore. It just is.
Right.
We're just the way we're supposed to be.
Right. So what I was getting at is I'm hopeful that we'll gain some insight on the building blocks of life itself that a computerized mind would be able to recognize that a human mind can. But we have to be vigilant in that we're not just going to hand over all the control and power to an AI, because again, an AI is limited to what its creators have given it at this time. So we'll see about that. But anyway, I think it's something interesting, and I'll try and bring that up on every show for no reason, out of nowhere.
It is. It's happening today.
Anyways, we're running out of time. Paul, we barely even got into your origin story, but it's extremely interesting. It's a harrowing story of survival, and he made it out clearly. Obviously, he's here and he's fit, like some kind of guy you find on a Greek mountain training with rocks. The man is here. He's alive.
Well, I'm training on the beach with rocks, actually. So yeah. No mountains this year, at least, anyways.
Literal rocks. So we got to talk about that again. So we'll have Paul on again. And if you enjoy the show, please like, follow, subscribe. It helps us make more shows. Please do that. We can't do it without your support. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you have some questions for Paul, leave it in the comments, because Paul's going to read them. He's going to read them and he's going to answer. And Paul's got his own website. He does consults in several other fields as body optimization. He's a crypto expert, and he does a few other things. Paul, where can people find you?
Well, right now you can reach out to me through email. It's probably where I'm going to see you the most. I'm a big Telegram guy. I'm not going to give you my handle, I don't think, right now. But
we do have a Telegram, the iHealCollective Telegram. He's on there.
Yeah, so
you can reach him through there.
You can reach me through the iHeal Telegram for sure. I'll probably see that before anything, honestly. But my email is pauljroy84 at protonmail.com.
Proton Mail, that's like the secret agent mail, or what's that?
It's an encrypted email service. It's based in Switzerland, so it's not underneath the jurisdiction of the Five Eyes, right? So essentially, it's just I don't want to use Hotmail. I don't want to use Google, right? Because they're essentially reading all of our emails if they want to, right? It's
yes.
All, right. So this is something where at least it's encrypted if we go Proton Mail to Proton Mail. But I don't want to have stuff stored on Google servers at any time. I also sell de-Googled phones, so it's I'm not going to use Google.
So these are Android phones with the what could you call it? The infection of Google.
That's right.
Removed.
The tentacles.
Yeah, the tentacles taken out.
Yeah, the octopus has been removed from the Android phone. So we've installed a new operating system on there that's hardened for privacy and security. And you don't get your apps through Google or Apple, so that's important. We're trying to preserve your data so that in the future, right now data is worth more than oil, right? And it's also being used against us as well. Everything that's happened in the past 3 years would not have been possible without the data. Same in politics. All the political machine is driven by data right now. Everything is being driven by data. It is the new oil, and all of us are producing this data, and it's being stolen from us on a daily basis. So at least with the de-Googled phones, what we're trying to do is protect your data, and hopefully in the future we're going to have a way to monetize that for yourself, and you decide whether you want to give it out or not. Right now you don't have a choice if you use a smartphone, or a dumb phone as I like to call it.
Yeah, how'd you like to be in on the business that's created by your private and personal data? Wouldn't that be nice, folks? Yeah, I'd like that.
Yeah.
Or just opt out.
Yeah, just
completely.
opt out,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how is it for businesses, Proton Mail?
For businesses in terms of, well, there's tricks you can do,
Because
right?
the
If
thing
you
is
still have
people
to-
are like, great, I want to get rid of Google, but I mean, I use it for everything: schedule, planner, calendar, blah blah blah,
Right.
drive, storage,
So-
docs, spreadsheets.
So it depends on your level of how deep you want to go down this rabbit hole. Nobody needs to go all the way if they don't have to. They can slowly move out of the system. There's all kinds of open source, decentralized apps that exist right now.
Oh, maybe
you
we
can-
should save it for the next
Yeah, we
show.
gotta
What do you
save-
think?
we
Because
gotta-
we're
yeah.
just about we're out of time
Yeah.
here.
We got
gotta-
lots of stuff. We got
we
100
gotta
shows
shut her
in
down.
us. Yeah.
Paul's going to be on all the time. Stay tuned for that. Thank you for coming in, Paul. As
Thanks for
always,
having
always
me.
a pleasure, buddy. Right on. So we'll see you next time on the iHealCollective Health Show, General Show. I haven't even named this yet. You know,
Okay,
we're
well.
just informal about it. You know, it's all good. Anyways, like, follow, subscribe. Please leave a comment. Talk to Paul. See you next time. All right, everyone.